Welcome back everybody. My name is Leanne Buchanan. I'm the Executive Director of Venture Cafe Miami, and I'm really excited to bring up our next conversation. We're going to have next a discussion on reassessing data protection for the cloud era. Everybody knows these days everything's on the cloud. Those days of floppy disks and hard drives are pretty much non-existent. So please join me in welcoming John Ackerly and Will Ackerly, who are the co-founders and CEO and CTO of Virtru, and it's their first time speaking together on stage, and the conversation will be moderated by Jordan Novet, technology reporter of CNBC. Welcome, gentlemen.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Hello.
So, hi, everyone.
Thank you guys for sticking around and listening to what we have to say, and we'll try to keep it interesting. So why don't we just introduce ourselves a little bit? I'll start because I'm the moderator and I can do that.
Yep.
I'm Jordan Novet. I write about AI, public cloud, and Microsoft for CNBC's website primarily. And security and data come up a lot. And so here we have the founders of Virtru. And why don't we just start off by who you are, what you're doing in the company, and then I'll backtrack from there.
Great. So I'm Will Ackerly, the CTO and co-founder. Spent 8 years working on information sharing in the government and 5 years working with my brother on data privacy for individuals and companies.
And you were at the NSA?
NSA, that's right.
Right. And how about your brother, John?
Great. So then I'm John Ackerly, co-founder, CEO. So my career began at the White House doing technology policy. And for the past 5 years, I've been working with Will, and it's been a fantastic ride.
Right. So your brothers, one of them, Will, is the youngest one of the three.
That's right.
And John is the oldest. There's a middle one, Clay. So can you just tell us how two brothers, not three, got here as the founders and top executives of this company?
Yeah, for sure.
What's the story?
You know, it's interesting. So all three of us spent a lot of time listening to our parents, and they instilled in us a lot of focus on making sure that you contribute back to the public. Public services was an important thing for us. So actually, both of us were in the government for a while. As we mentioned, working from different angles on similar things around technology policy and this sort of thing. And it was really just, and we can talk about it at some point, but both realizing that after our public service, in the government directly, one of the best ways to really address the issue of privacy was to work together and build technology to try to address it directly.
Okay, so how did you guys do it?
So I feel like that is very fair, but the first principle was to not screw up family Christmas. So and so we have managed to then do that as we've scaled the company. So I think that's the first win. And then our third brother is a doctor, and data privacy is not in his wheelhouse. So I think that's worked out a-okay.
Okay, got it. And so what's he doing now, by the way?
He is a geriatrician.
Okay.
He's also a part owner of Virtru as well. And so prior to his work, then delivering fantastic care, he was the CMO of a couple of very large healthcare IT companies, actually. And so he decided that for this period of time right now, he's going to go back to private practice.
So I could see him as sort of a third co-founder. You said he has a stake in the company.
Yes.
Did you talk to him and say, hey, we're doing this thing, you probably want to be part of it? Like, what was the conversation like? What did he say?
Yeah.
I just wondered.
I think it kind of goes back to the family Christmas point. What we did not want was to have a fantastic success and not have him be part of it. I will also say that we have spent a lot of time in Silicon Valley, and it was kind of interesting. It was kind of like out of that show. We almost missed our Series A financing because a venture capitalist who is now part of the cap table, who will go nameless, said that is extremely uneconomic. I do not understand why you would do that. But we battled through that by doing a couple of demos of our easy-to-use data privacy software. But yes.
Huh.
Yep.
Okay.
And in the beginning, he was, as a doctor, he was dealing with, patient records and how do I interact with my patients and basically all of the solutions out there that really protect the privacy of my patients, they're kind of crummy. And so he was a big, promoter and encouraged us to take the big swing and has been an advisor. For sure. So yeah.
Advisor. Okay.
Yeah.
So this sort of gets into how things have evolved. Just go over what Virtru was, what Virtru is now, and how he is advising, and what capacity he's advising.
Great. So then I can take that one. So in terms of what Virtru is, we are a data privacy platform. So then what does that mean? It means, first of all, our flagship product is a secure email made easy. It is being used by the millions of individuals. So then across the world, 8,000 corporate customers, starting from then mom and pops up to our largest deployment, which is across 183,000 users at Verizon. We have continued to really emphasize that first use case because it's such an unsolved need in the market. We have continued to then evolve the business so then serving other kind of file sharing formats. We now have a developer API as well. And so Clay, so then our middle brother, given his and healthcare background, really helped to get us start with our first anchor customers in the healthcare space.
So did you say, hey, dude, you're a brother, you have to use this thing that we built, and you even gave me this stake in the company? Like,
well,
how did you get him
we
to
would
do
like
it?
to think it is kind of easy enough that, in fact, it was a delight for him.
Oh.
But to get started, it was pretty darn buggy, and so he, in fact, it was a bit of cajoling. So he was a great user tester, very detailed, so then oriented, that guy. So.
And I mean, for someone who's a brother, you can just ask him a bunch of questions, I guess, if you're close enough to him in that moment. But it's a whole other thing to ask a person to have their company deploy it rather than your own brother. So how big was the office? I mean, how many people was he forcing, in essence, to use this buggy thing? What was it like? I just wonder.
Yeah, I mean, so we both have a free product for individual use, and we really started, and we still have, a very consumer-focused mindset around user experience. So for him, it was a Chrome extension right into his Gmail, 5 seconds, and he was up and running. And then, because it was very early, he kind of found a few edge cases, so then let's just say, and basically extending that to then employees. And so for him, it was, so then when he started, it was, 4 years ago, I suppose, and it was just his own use. Now we have probably 3,000 medical practices. So then using our software, his is one of them.
And his office has what, 10 people, 100 people? I'm just trying to ballpark it.
Oh, his office has, I think, 25 people.
And they're all sending Virtru emails every day, or?
Not just internally, but also with external parties. So the Veterans Affairs Administration is one of our larger customers in the healthcare space. So we were actually the only vendor that was really called out in congressional testimony for not just being secure email, but actually being transformative in the work that they're doing, trying to deliver care to our nation's veterans that were heretofore fax machines, lots of faxes. They send 100 million faxes per year. So basically taking that out. So, part of their business transformation.
Okay. And I just want to go back a little bit. I realized that Will started to touch on the idea of a public service. And what I hear is going into big business.
Right.
So my sense is you wanted to do maybe an open source project or something that was free and easy to use.
Yep.
And this guy somehow convinced you to make it into a big business where you can make a bunch of money. So
That's right,
how did that happen? What was the dialogue there?
Yeah, the ardent capitalist here. No, I mean it's it's sort of self-described.
Yeah.
No, but so I mean we both are. So we both started with the goal of saying, look, open technology and is going to win when it comes to a way of being able to actually protect your privacy well. It's been tried before. The cryptography is there, PGP, but just try using PGP to send your patient records to your doctor, or sensitive board communications, or any communication that you have that's personal with a friend, et cetera. And so we wanted to really focus on the user experience, as well as be built on open technologies. And really sort of the crucible, the litmus test there is getting it into the hands of individuals who raise their hand and say, I want to protect my privacy, right? Not a regulatory regime, right? But I'm actually going to just because I want to.
Yeah, and I would say that we've been very aligned. So the monetization strategy, I think we had a few differences of opinion about timing, but fundamentally having free software, which I mean,
we still do.
Right. I use
so then between us, maybe some of our, so then Salesforce every now and again wonders why we offer free software, but it's foundational to our privacy mission. And from an ecosystem building perspective, it is extremely important. I mean, traditional encryption, it's, you have to spend a lot of money, super hard to use, and free it is anathema. We were probably the only vendor at the RSA Security Conference that was promoting free.
Okay, I like that. Now, I just wonder if we're going to think about you as a up-and-coming company that provides online services. I'm going to think about previous companies, more mature companies that have taken a similar strategy. I am thinking of Dropbox, I'm thinking of Box, and I'm thinking of Slack. And I think they probably make a pretty good business in individual usage, whether it's the number of users or it's the amount of revenue that ultimately comes out when the company goes public and you can see the top line by product segment.
Yep.
So how do the things look with you guys? Are the numbers suggesting that it's a good idea, as you say, to provide that free tier? Or is it just like 1% of the usage, 1% of the revenue?
I'll take one perspective, and that is, I think John will have a different one, but like going back to that user experience, we wouldn't have the user experience, ease of use, the one click to get into your Chrome Gmail or what have you.
Right. Or Outlook, right?
Or Outlook, or your mobile. If it weren't for really needing to make sure that was an awesome experience for the free user. So like that right there has paid enormous dividends through the enterprise.
Sure.
Right. So if you're talking, sort of like the, Dropbox, Box did the exact same thing, right? So let's make sure that we have a product that everyone really likes, but then also have this premium tier.
We are probably, yes, and I think that that's exactly right. I would say that from a revenue perspective, though, we are more like Box than we are like Dropbox. I think it's the reality of a security company where there is a free software and that can build the ecosystem. We are not monetizing on the freemium upsell. And we are not gating on 10 secure messages, then you've got to pay. It is a fundamentally free piece of software.
It's a human right, so we don't want to charge someone for that core human right.
You never will?
No, we don't intend
Never
to.
will.
And so how do you finance it? How do you justify it to your board, to yourselves?
Well,
Other than the spiritual leader here who says free software
well, we
power.
have come a long way from then revenue being a 4-letter word.
Okay.
But it happened with a major Southern banking customer, Southern of ours, where the deputy CISO was an evangelist in the meeting because he was a free user.
Okay.
Right? He was using it for pretty important but the pedestrian use cases like sending tax information to his accountant.
Okay.
And I think he also used it once with a doctor as well. But he understood that this is as much about employee adoption as it is about pure security, and so that really helps with our sales friction.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, like a 2-click try before you buy is pretty rare in the enterprise security space. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Antivirus, is there a lot of examples of free there, and you can, for a business?
That might be, yeah, I mean, they do that as well, right? So like a lot of laptops that you buy will come with it, and then they,
right.
In that case, there's a lot of freemium individual upsell, like, we found something, but if you want to clean up,
that's our model.
That's more like ransomware almost.
Right. And you're not going to do that. We see that you have very valuable information that you're sending in this email. We're therefore going to make you pay $10 this month.
Right. No.
Exactly.
Not doing that. Got it. Well, actually, I want to go back a little bit in history. I imagine that your backgrounds might have helped you get into these bigger customers. You talk about Verizon, the VA. How do your experiences come into use in meetings with the CISOs, the CIO? I don't know actually which types of business leaders you're meeting with, but what happens? What do you say? You say, I was there, trust me?
Yeah, no, I think a lot of the trust me stuff doesn't work. I think the open technology, actually, coming from the government and seeing how good open technology is versus closed technology, really motivated my push to say, look, let's build on an open core, right? Because if you look at where the squirrely things happen, it tends to happen behind closed doors. But in terms of pedigree, in terms of like coming from the backgrounds that we have, I think it has been useful, right? In terms of vulnerabilities and where might the skeletons be buried and these sorts of things, it's like, okay, there might be some insight, right? So I think the expertise from playing on the offense and defense side of the house is usually,
I think that's
plays well.
a big part of it. I will say Will's expertise, while there is no trust me, it does give you a great starting point. Also in terms of recruiting the talent so that we can deliver at scale. I would also say, frankly, there's an authenticity to this issue that we've cared about for a very long time. And there are just a lot of cybersecurity vendors out there where it feels kind of snake oily. $100 billion spent a year, so then spent per year on automated AI-driven threat protection in a box. And at the end of the day, that model is not working. And so I think because we can talk about the founder story and it's real, that helps.
Okay, all right. Well, this panel is supposed to address the current legislative or governmental regulation, and that is GDPR, General Data Protection Regulations. Yeah. Goes into effect May 25th, so fix it if you haven't fixed it for your company. What have you guys done to make sure that Virtru is certified, GDPR compliant, not just for the people who are in the European Union, but around the world? What has happened?
Yeah, what's really nice is when we looked at sort of the provisions of GDPR, we really already had the core principles built into the technology. So the concept of right to be forgotten, we have a revoke button, right? And it's built into the fact that I've encrypted my data and I actually have full custody over my keys, right? If you don't grant someone access to your keys, your data is, from a cryptographic standpoint, forgotten. And then being able to audit and understand, okay, is there, are you processing your data, et cetera, right? But in terms of, so we built APIs and SDKs and we're, eating our own dog food as it were, right? So we had the core principles already built internally, and really it's just focusing on saying, okay, for our customers, beyond email, if you have data that is going to be going to third parties, et cetera, how do you make sure that you can take the same approach that we did and make sure that that data is inherently has the protections and the controls that you need, not necessarily relying on the third-party provider.
Yep.
So it's called everything that it's supposed to be called now, the controller of the data, things like this. You've changed your privacy policy or terms of use. What did you do in addition?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of semantics where you did some alignment. Make sure we called it one thing, they called it another, so we aligned there.
And when did you start doing that, by the way? Is it like in the past 3 weeks?
2011.
Yesterday? No.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, well, it's been, as soon as, so there's been an evolution in terms of interpretations and clarifications. That's sort of things we've been following since the very beginning and make sure that we're up to date as that's evolving. And there's still some unanswered questions, but we're trying to be very conservative about our interpretations, being public about the positions that we take on our website and laying it all out for everyone to see.
So then to be clear as well, so then you mentioned the term certification. There is no such thing as a GDPR certification, and any vendor that says, hey, with us, you are safe and sound, they are not telling the truth, because there's no single answer to this. And we'll see how this plays out over the next couple of months. So.
Well, I wonder what you're hearing from other founders that you talk with, or companies that are in the same portfolio from your VCs. I wonder what you're hearing about how they've racked their brains to adjust their products to fit these new guidelines.
It depends on the kind of company, right?
So what are they doing?
So if you are an ad tech company, I don't know how you really manage this. We haven't, so with our Bessemer Ventures portfolio and then NE8 portfolio, really our conversation's been tactical around how encryption can help lower your burden around breach notification requirements, going from a 72-hour requirement to basically being okay because your data is encrypted at rest, and that's a huge step forward. So we haven't had a detailed dialogue about how they have gone in and they've done their own data mapping and that kind of a thing.
Okay, what happens after May 25th? What do you think people might start to see in terms of regulation and
Well, we hope that
going to
there is
companies?
enforcement because this is a very important step forward. It's a little bit too bad that the U.S. didn't take the lead here. You know, I was the technology policy advisor before and after 9/11, worked with the then governor on a very pro-consumer privacy policy. Literally, 7:30 in the morning on September 11th, 2001, was briefing the deputy chief of staff of the White House on what would have, on a policy that we were going to brief the president on 2 days later that would have required opt-in consent for any third party to reshare and sell data online.
Wow,
Right?
whatever
so
happened?
fast forward, well, September 11th happened, and you can, and it's just the reality that in the fog of what happened afterwards, you had the USA Patriot Act come through.
Right.
Again, not to get political, but you know, I will never forget being in the room, and it felt like it was me and one other person, and then 14 DOJ lawyers with a stack about 14 inches high of a policy, you know, SLM framework that had been in the works for 20 years. So basically, you know, this is before Gmail, right?
Right.
And this whole
That was
notion,
2004?
that was 2004, and this whole notion that your data is your property was something we were pushing very hard on, and that all changed, right? And so it was pretty cool. Fast forward 2008, 2009, and literally at the family's kitchen table, so at Mom and Dad's kitchen table, Will was talking about a white paper that he was working on for the Galileo Award around trusted data format, which is the open standard that Will referenced, and how, you know, we just started brainstorming about how by implementing TDF in the workflows that matter, you can start to get that pendulum back into balance. And so, you know, it's been it has been a long road, and as a startup, there were years where it was like, are people ever going to care? Is this ever going to break through? Even after Edward Snowden, even after Sony, right? You kind of start to chip away, but I truly believe that 2018, what just happened at Facebook, we are starting to get to a point where consumers know that their data matters. Even if they have nothing to hide, they have stuff to protect. And that's why, you know, we are really excited to be part of that. No one company is going to solve this issue. But being a part of that, and GDPR is a really important step forward, and I'll leave it at that.
So do you guys use Facebook?
Nope, I don't.
No, you don't.
Nope.
Okay, I do. I do not think it's possible for me to send a message to someone encrypted over Virtru, but I can send an encrypted message over WhatsApp. So I wonder, what can you do to make the systems where people are at, other than email, other than Outlook and Gmail, obviously? How do you make that trust a greater level amid all the distrust of a company like Facebook this year?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And there are some cases where you can do it unilaterally. So one of the things, I mean, so what we did first, right? We didn't, you know, call up Google and say, oh, hey, can we write a plugin for Gmail? We figured out how to write a browser extension, do it unilaterally, right? And then with Yahoo and rinse and repeat, with some you know, user experience focus, right? Making sure it's awesome. But like, you can do that unilaterally. We did that with our own APIs, right? One of the things that we're really doubling down on is making our APIs just as user-friendly for any developer. And say, you know, if they want to innovate across the multitude of different platforms, they can take the exact same approach, open core, open technology, and do that.
And what are you seeing so far? I like Slack, for example. I use Slack to do my job.
Anyway, Slack's an example. Like, stay tuned on Slack.
Okay, all right.
But you know, it's something where the technology can work.
Private channels.
Private
channels.
There's a lot.
Exactly, right? So you already have this private channel concept, but it doesn't afford you end-to-end encryption. It can, right? And that's true for a lot of platforms where traditionally, someone would say, well, you can't have this feature, and encryption would interfere with it. But if you really look at it and you really focus on, okay, what are the features that you need, you can bring them back, like search, right? So we did encrypted search. We have that available as well. And it's not just something an administrator can use. It's something you can just search for your email. But we're really focusing on trusted, growing the trusted data format ecosystem, and we think that those opportunities will grow in terms of not just us building those integrations, but developer communities that see the need doing the same thing.
I think, go ahead.
Okay, no, please.
Okay, I was going to say I get that, but what if you have Google, a partner or enabler, or Microsoft, for that matter, saying we are going to match the capabilities with no other additional plugin, without the need for Virtru? How do you deal with the big companies like these that you are working with potentially encroaching?
So that's a good question. Or please.
Yeah, no, I would just say in a lot of ways, I think it's a good thing. I think demonstrating that the need is there and people will pay as an enterprise and individuals will adopt as a differentiator is something that I think all companies it's great for us in the long run, right? Because we're there to help others who want to adopt the same approach and make that a differentiator.
So I think that's right. I think also, as these large platform companies roll out things that sound like real privacy, read the fine print about whether or not they have access to content.
Yes.
And from an enterprise perspective, there are, by the way, plenty of important use cases where large platform companies having access to your encryption key and content are also potentially okay based on your trust model. But every customer control key solution out there that we've seen, maybe there's something new, it's kind of fundamental to their architecture that they have the key and the content, even for the enterprise.
I just want to touch on Google because I saw they came out with, or they're working on some kind of confidential mode.
Exactly,
where you can revoke access to an email after a certain number of days, which sounds a little bit like one of the things that you can do with Virtru.
Yes.
So what do you make of this thing? Yeah,
I mean, it's a great example. We're a preferred partner with Google.
Right.
We have a close relationship.
Right.
And as a lot of companies will do, if they see an app or a thing that they will integrate it into the OS or that kind of a thing. And I think what they've done is add a few features that may look like control. What they're doing in that particular context is saying, look, trust Google with the content still.
Right.
And then they're going to be bringing the recipients into the Google experience, but it's not an encryption, right? It's
not truly cross-platform either.
And it's not cross-platform either, right? So when you send with Virtru, you can consume that in a Microsoft environment. There's heterogeneity, right? That you can accommodate, right? The approach that they're taking is, when it boils down to it, is really sort of like a portal, right? So you can't be in your native app, stay in your native app, consume that email. You're gonna have to hop into something different, right? So that's a user experience issue. But I think the more core issue is the fact that some people might be thinking they get encryption and protection and control that they aren't actually getting. And when we'll see, sometimes these products are very upfront and forthright about these things, and sometimes companies talk about them in ways to try to make it sound like you're getting everything that you possibly want. Don't look too close.
So I would just say, read the fine print. We think it's a great step forward for our partners, and there's got to be truth in advertising as well.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Okay. Well, before we go, I just want to open it up for questions and see if there's someone who would like to ask the Ackerleys any particular questions. And I do not see anyone immediately raising their hands, but I do see the lights now. Okay. Well, that means I get to ask one more question. And that is about Google versus Microsoft. You guys work with Google, you guys work with Microsoft.
We are neutral territory.
What are the people using? What is more popular? What's gaining traction? I think I know, but I want to know what you guys see because you work with the customers that deploy these things.
Right. So, I mean, we have to be a little careful about what we can share because we are tightly coupled with both ecosystems.
Right.
I would just say that there was a period of time in 2011 and 12 that Google did a nice job of taking advantage of maybe leadership at Microsoft that was not forward-thinking about a cloud strategy. Microsoft recovered very nicely. It's crucial that we support, Office 365, right? So that we can support folks who are moving to the cloud in either Google or Microsoft. But for people who are big-time Googlers and kind of made the commitment to move their infrastructure to Google, I think under the leadership of a Diane Green, they are making something of a comeback. If you look at the Airbus win that Google made, that is a good sign that they're getting their act together and that they're working with partners who can really make sure that the data encryption and privacy story are spot on. We are agnostic, but I think it was Google was eating Microsoft's lunch. Microsoft has come back, and Google, is sort of getting back into the fray. But there's a battle for the enterprise infrastructure happening right now, and it'll be really interesting to see.
And is Airbus a customer?
There are certain customers that we cannot mention, but let's just say that there is very easy to use email encryption happening all across the world, including France. And so anyway,
Okay. Thank you guys very much for taking the time. Will and John Ackerly.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, gentlemen. That was truly an insightful and important conversation that we appreciate you having.